fights back. India transitions to the new parliament. Prime Minister Modi leads MPs as they enter the new complex. Old parliament to be called Samvidhan Sadan, or House of the Constitution. India today accesses 12 more Khalistanis and gangsters who are hiding abroad and wanted by India. Will Trudeau act since most of them are in Canada, or will he continue to pander to his vote bank? Big win for forces as they avenge the death of Anantnag Braves. Lashkar commander Uzair Khan neutralized after 7 days of anti-terror operations. 3 army personnel perished in this operation and 1 from the Jammu and Kashmir police. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has just announced to the world that he is a terrorist enabler. Not a sympathizer, but an active enabler of extremists and terrorists. The reason, it's actually one of the oldest reasons in the political book, and no one should be surprised. The sizable Sikh population in Canada, which wields significant influence in important pockets of that country. Before I proceed, I wish to get one thing out of the way, viewer, and this is very important to me. Khalistani terrorists like Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was killed 3 months ago and whose assassination Justin Trudeau now blames India for, are just a tiny, minuscule section of the Canadian Sikh community who are otherwise peaceful, responsible citizens like anyone else and do not support terrorist threats and violence against the country of their origin or in fact, for anyone else. Trudeau says that an entire community cannot be blamed for the actions of a few, which is totally true, like I've mentioned above. But it holds no weight when Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, has taken no action even against those minuscule few, and instead has decided to stand up in his parliament to point a finger at the world's biggest democracy, a country of 1.3 billion people, to defend a person who is by all means a terrorist. In doing so, Justin Trudeau hasn't just proven to be a terrorist enabler, but also perhaps one of the most short-sighted world leaders in history, in my opinion. Terrified that he may lose the support of a community, he has decided to declare a diplomatic war against a country that the world sees as the most reliable and responsible nation in the war against terror. And don't miss the irony of how Justin Trudeau, in blaming India and defending a terrorist, has himself, ironically, painted an entire community by prioritizing a vote bank. Justin Trudeau, a leader whose soft-focus PR helped an entire fake liberal ecosystem to sell him as the world's great hope, has made a choice today. A choice that most Canadians, I dare say, will find shameful. But it isn't difficult to see why Prime Minister Trudeau did what he did. He was seething from a totally bungled visit to India for the G20. While he was extended every courtesy here in India, he received, let's face it, the diplomatic equivalent of a slammed door while on Indian soil. The Canadian press and his opposition back in Canada had a field day bashing Trudeau for being such a national embarrassment. If things weren't bad enough, he had to suffer the ignominy of a defective VVIP jet that left him stranded in Delhi, exposing him to even more ridicule of overstaying his welcome in India. Even his Khalistani friends wondered if something else was afoot. That's how bad his entire week was. So it's beyond understandable that as soon as he finally touched down in Canada, a frustrated, humiliated Trudeau decided he needed to hit back. He needed to get even. He needed to take some action to show he wasn't taking all of this lying down. Allowing his emotions and clear sense of insecurity to get the better of him, Justin Trudeau chose to describe a Khalistani terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was assassinated 3 months ago, a person who actually entered Canada on a fake passport, who forged documents, tried to marry a citizen in order to be accepted as a citizen. Justin Trudeau chose to describe him as merely a Canadian citizen. He gave the entire fleet of Canadian Sikh nobodies in Parliament to vent their frustration and false sense of hurt. With Khalistani terrorists like Nijjar mysteriously dropping like flies, these Canadian Desi MPs are clearly under fire from the extremists to get off their backsides and show some kind of passion, some jigger. Which is why Canadian MPs like Kamal Khera, Jagmeet Singh, who is an ally of Trudeau, Harjeet Sajjan, are all forced to bow to terrorists, terrified that they'll lose their vote bank. And now with Trudeau leading the charge, they can all breathe a sigh of relief. But Trudeau, for all his diplomatic short-sightedness, is merely being his father's son. Justin's father, the famous Pierre Trudeau, who was Canadian Prime Minister twice, famously refused a request from then-Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1982 for the extradition of a Khalistani terrorist named Talvinder Parmar. That name may not be familiar to you, but he is a big Khalistani terrorist. Because 3 years after that extradition request, which was denied to Indira Gandhi, the Kanishka Air India bombings took place, orchestrated by this very same terrorist Talvinder Parmar. The blood of 329 people, including Canadian citizens, is on Trudeau family hands. Just a few weeks ago, Justin Trudeau, remember, famously refused to take action against a Khalistani tableau depicting Indira Gandhi's assassination, because in his words, it was peaceful and broke no apparent Canadian law. But now, by pointing a finger at India for the murder of a Khalistani terrorist, with no evidence to back it but for the frenzied screams of extremists in places like Surrey and ghettos in Brampton, Trudeau has signaled to the world that he is no world leader. He is your garden variety hypocrite who has bitten off more than he can chew. The compulsions of a vote bank have forced him to open a front against a country that is ruled by law and brooks no support of terrorists. What he's also done is paint a target on the backs of millions of persons of Indian origin who live and work in Canada. India has responded for now with a tit-for-tat expulsion of a Canadian intelligence officer. But even Trudeau must know, if the extremists in his vote bank have gone into hiding, terrified of the sudden air of threat over their existence, there's only so much Trudeau can actually do. Now, the big allegation by the Canadian Prime Minister against India set this morning's news agenda. He stood up in Parliament and he said the death of Canadian Sikh leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who is a commander of the Khalistan commando force. He's a terrorist. Plain and simple. Not by anyone's imagination, but by several different countries. A terrorist was named and defended by the Canadian Prime Minister in order to point a finger at India. If you missed the story, here it is.
The gloves are off. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Monday announced in Parliament Indian agents could be behind the killing of Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Khalistani terrorist wanted in India.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
We've been clear, we will...
Canada has expelled an Indian diplomat over what it calls the involvement of a foreign government in its internal affairs. Within hours of Canada's provocation, New Delhi retaliated by expelling a senior Canadian diplomat.
You got External Affairs Minister. Sir, you meet the... You got External Affairs Minister.
India has called Canada's accusations absurd and politically motivated to shift the focus from Khalistani terrorists and extremists who are being allowed a free run there.
Phrase which came to my mind was actually a Hindi phrase, which was "Ulta chor kotwal ko dante." I mean, if anybody has a complaint, we have a complaint about Canada. You know, what I said earlier, the space that they're giving to Khalistanis and to violent extremists. So I was very perplexed by what I heard.
Nijjar, whom India had declared a wanted terrorist, was gunned down on June 18th in Surrey. The NIA had issued an arrest warrant for Nijjar, accusing him of carrying out terrorist attacks in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had taken up the issue of Khalistani extremists getting a voice in Canada in his bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Trudeau in Delhi on the sidelines of G20. Trudeau claims he'd discussed Nijjar's killing with the Indian Prime Minister. Canada had recently suspended negotiations for a free trade agreement with India. With the latest accusations, the already sour diplomatic relations between the two countries have hit a new low. Bureau Report, India Today.
And we have a little more information coming in on who the Canadian diplomat is who has just been expelled by India as part of a tit-for-tat measure taken after Canada decided to expel an Indian diplomat following what Justin Trudeau said about India being responsible for the assassination of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. The station head of the Canadian Intelligence Service has been expelled by the Modi government within hours of the Canadian action. We can now confirm to you that his name is Olivier Sylvester. He's a Canadian station head of their intelligence service. He's been asked to get out of India within the next 5 days. Let's go across to Gaurav Sawant for more on this. Gaurav, tit-for-tat measure here by India, and not surprising that it's the station chief of Canadian intelligence who's been asked to get out.
Shiv, Olivier Sylvester has been asked to leave India in the next 5 days for conduct unbecoming of a diplomat. So he has the next 5 days before he's declared persona non grata. You're absolutely right. This is a tit-for-tat action after Canada asked a top Indian diplomat to leave the country. And this is virtually painting a target on the backs of Indian diplomats and officials in Canada. As you very rightly pointed out, Shiv, Canada for decades has been backing Khalistani terrorists. You spoke of Parmar. India has repeatedly taken this up with Canada, including giving evidence of the involvement of the Khalistanis in human trafficking, in narco-terrorism, in activities that are not good even for people in Canada. At the same time, because of vote bank politics, Justin Trudeau, like his father Pierre Trudeau, refused to take action against the Khalistani elements. And Shiv, also look at the double speak in Karima Baloch, who was actually a genuine refugee from Pakistan, running away from Pakistan's military jihad complex and eliminated on the orders of Pakistan's ISI in Canada. Canada's keeping quiet. Justin Trudeau is quiet about that. But here, when a suspected terrorist wanted by India in Interpol's most wanted list, in a list that's been sent out by India for involvement in a bombing and for keeping explosives, for entering Canada illegally. There are so many cases against Nijjar. Justin Trudeau describes him as a Canadian Sikh, actually bringing a bad name to the Sikhs living in Canada, who are very, very peaceful and peace-loving people.
It's the biggest irony here. The fact that Justin Trudeau who usually uses the defense by saying that an entire community cannot be painted with the same brush because of a few extremists, has actually turned around and done exactly that. And that's the reason why so many Sikh leaders across the world are abusing Justin Trudeau right now. Gaurav, stay with me. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, in whose name Justin Trudeau has staked his reputation, his career, and everything that the world had perhaps thought about him, or at least one section of the world had thought about him, is now really in pieces, because Hardeep Singh Nijjar had entered Canada on a fake passport, forged documents. He tried to hide from authorities for many years. He tried to marry a local and gain citizenship in that manner. He had dodged authorities for years and years. His activities and links to terror were clearly established. Many dossiers had been supplied by India, a responsible nation, a democracy, to Canada. And yet, thanks to Vote Bank, all of these misdemeanors, links to terror, proven acts of terrorism were overlooked by Canadian governments, and Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister no less, 3 months after the assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, has stood up to brand him a Canadian citizen and a leader of the Canadian Sikh community. What could be more insulting to Sikhs not just in Canada but everywhere else in the world. Here is a full report on terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Originally from a village in Punjab's Jalandhar district, the 45-year-old, wanted by India in several terror cases, shot dead in the parking lot of a Gurudwara in Canada's Surrey. Gunned down by what investigators initially said were two masked men who fled the scene. A third suspected assailant added to the list later. The three believed to have used a silver 2008 Toyota Camry as their getaway vehicle. In 2022, the National Investigation Agency declared a 10 lakh rupees reward for information leading to Nijjar on charges of conspiring to murder a priest in Jalandhar. The NIA previously filed a charge sheet against him for terrorist acts against India in other cases. Nijjar, named as a member of the Khalistan Tiger Force, a designated terrorist group. In 2016, he was linked to a 2007 bombing at a Punjab cinema that killed 6. Nijjar claimed to have moved to Canada in 1997, working as a plumber at a local Gurudwara. India has categorically rejected Canadian allegations of involvement in Nijjar's murder as absurd and politically motivated, saying that Canada had long provided shelter to Khalistani terrorists and extremists. Experts, however, believe non-state actors like Nijjar, crafted by Pakistan's rogue ISI, have been caught in their own web.
It is the policy of Pakistan's ISI to eliminate, to send terrorists to different countries. They eliminate their own people, and these people who have been killed either in Pakistan or Canada, they had become liability for Pakistan, whether it is Hafiz Saeed or Syed Salahuddin.
From Canada to Pakistan, the violent deaths of Khalistani elements could very well be the handiwork of the ISI that once nurtured them.
If there is any person who is working for any agency, if he is unable to deliver, then he has to be sold out or killed. That is what Pakistan ISI is doing, because Pakistan had been spending a lot of money on terrorists and terrorist activities in India and elsewhere, but lately Pakistan is in a big problem, economic problem. Pakistan cannot afford them, so it is Pakistan who is killing them, or Pakistan ISI who is killing them, or in some cases there is inter-gang rivalry.
A house of terror built by Pakistan crumbled under its own weight. With Arvind Oja, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, I want to get a word in, an expert view from Sushant Sareen. He's Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation and one of India's most well-known and well-regarded strategic affairs experts. Gaurav Sawant, our Managing Editor, is also with us. Sushant Sareen, first to you. You know, I've been following some of the things you've been saying on social media since this story broke. What do you think about what has happened? What Trudeau said in Parliament and the things that have taken place following that? One diplomat expelled there, another diplomat expelled here. Your view?
You know, Shiv, just look at what the Canadians have said, on the basis of which they've taken what can be called the diplomatic side of a nuclear option. What does Trudeau say? Credible allegations, and then he says potential link. And then he goes on to, give an entire litany of charges, none of which he has substantiated. His foreign minister then comes in and she says that there are allegations of involvement, and if these allegations are proven true, it would be very serious, right? Now, these allegations are still allegations. They have not been proven true, and yet they decide that they're going to expel an Indian diplomat. Now, clearly, this it smacks of something more than just simple, any information they might have. And let's talk about Canadian intelligence, or the lack of it. And the pun is on the word intelligence. Look at what the Indians have been telling the Canadians, that these Khalistani thugs who operate like a mafia, and like a mafia are organized, and they have politicians in their pay, perhaps at the highest levels of Canadian politics. because why else would somebody like a prime minister or a foreign minister of a country defend a terrorist, right?
Yes.
A man who's also believed to be involved in drug smuggling and human trafficking. And yet, India has been apprising the Canadian intelligence of these characters. We've even demanded extradition of some of these fellows, and the Canadians have pretended that nothing is happening. How does that work? And suddenly their intelligence has become, or their security services have become so smart that they've unveiled the entire whatever happened to this Nijjar fellow, right? How has that happened? Then you come across Canadian investigation skills, and you yourself in your initial report, you spoke about the the bombing of the Air India aircraft and the bombing of the Narita airport, and everybody's gone away scot-free. Now, what kind of intelligence or what kind of investigation work do these Canadians do that they are now coming out openly and leveling these kind of allegations? And then, look, Canada has accused India of interference. But we know it for a fact, and I hold my own government responsible for turning a blind eye.
Yes.
There has been money which has been funneled from Canada into India to fund political agitation in India, to fund political parties in India. Isn't that political interference? The Canadians sitting in Canada openly and publicly claim to have carried out political assassinations, to have carried out gangland murders, etc., etc. And the Canadians write about them that these are political activists. This is freedom of speech and conscience.
Indeed, yes.
Would the Canadian authorities allow Al-Qaeda sympathizers to take out floats glorifying and eulogizing the 9/11 attackers?
Very, very true. Very true. This is
freedom of conscience and freedom of speech only when it is about killing Indians and Hindus? Let's talk about Canadian security services. There have been open threats against Indian diplomats. They have asked for their addresses. This is what Pakistanis do. You know, when the Pakistanis were trying to get even with the American diplomats, they would name American diplomats, they would give their addresses, paint a target on their back. The Canadian have allowed this to go unanswered. They have allowed the vandalization of Hindu temples, the defiling of Hindu temples, and the defiling of the Indian High Commission to go unanswered. Threats have been issued against Canadian citizens.
Absolutely.
And against Indian diplomats, and the Canadians have not acted on it. That is not hate speech for Mr. Trudeau and his foreign minister.
I want to just bring Gaurav in, Mr. Sareen, for a moment, because you rightly talked about how the Indian government also needs to be asked questions in this case. Gaurav, multiple dossiers have been provided. The External Affairs Ministry statement suggests that Prime Minister Modi, in fact, may have brought this up, with Trudeau directly during that G20 pull aside as well. A tit-for-tat action being taken by the Indian government. But is this likely to escalate further?
It certainly is expected to escalate, Shiv. India has been more than kind with Justin Trudeau. Of course, India has given Justin Trudeau the cold shoulder. Even when he came to India in 2018 and stayed here for a week, it was virtually outstaying his hospitality even that time. But you remember all that song and dance and wearing traditional Indian clothes and dancing like in a wedding. Justin Trudeau did all of that. But that didn't cut ice with government of India because of Justin Trudeau's support to Khalistani elements, and the Narendra Modi government has been very firm from day one. Yes, we want great relationship with Canada. Yes, we want to move forward on the trade agreement. At the same time, we do not want Khalistanis in Canada spewing venom against India in the name of free speech and also trying to break India's sovereignty and Justin Trudeau government encouraging a secessionist movement. Shiv, that tableau showing the assassination of late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi at Brampton. In any civilized society, heads would have rolled for such a tableau. But in Canada, Justin Trudeau has actually tried to pass it off as free speech. if this is free speech, Shiv, and that inaction against Karima Baloch's killers, it just shows when these so-called liberals and Islamists come together, it's a very lethal cocktail. And India's actually warned Canada that this lethal cocktail will have dangerous ramifications for Canada. And we are seeing what's happening there.
You know, so far there was animosity, there were dossiers flying between each side. But now, you know, things have come to a head. This is hostile action that has been declared and hostile action that's also been taken. Sushant and Gaurav, stay with me for a moment. I'm going to come back to the both of you in just a minute from now because I want to play another report that India Today's crime chief, Arvind Ojha, broke last week, but he has a huge update today. At least 12 men accused of serious crimes, gangsters, terrorists as well as Khalistani terrorists from India who are safely operating from Canadian soil. Some of these faces may be very familiar to you. This is India's most wanted list of gangsters and terrorists who've got safe haven in Canada. This is a big, big India Today exclusive. Watch this report.
India's most wanted list for Canada. Hardeep Singh, alias Arsh Dalla, accused of masterminding the murder of a local Congress leader in Punjab's Moga on Monday. A listed terrorist belonging to the outlawed Khalistan Tiger Force carrying out his operations from Canada. Originally from Tarn Taran in Punjab, Lakhbir Singh linked to the ISI in Punjab. Named in last year's rocket attack on Mohali's intelligence building. Gangster Goldie Brar, alias Satwinder Singh, accused of orchestrating the murder of singer Sidhu Moosewala from his den in Canada. At least 12 men wanted in connection with serious crimes in India, terrorism included, have found a safe sanctuary in Canada. Many of them carrying out their nefarious activities in India remotely and with impunity. With Arvind Ojha, Bureau Report, India Today.
And I'm going to play out those pictures with those names on your screen because, viewer, I have a list in front of me, and this is exclusive to India Today, of 12 gangsters, Khalistanis and terrorists who are all hiding abroad. And out of these 12, 9 of them are currently enjoying a life of freedom in Canada. This is including Goldie Brar, the famous Goldie Brar, who was in the Moosewala murder, Lakhbir Singh, alias Landa, Sukhdul Singh, alias Sukha, Arshdeep Singh, alias Arsh Dalla, Satvir Singh Waring, alias Sam Abohar, Charanjit Singh, alias Rinku Bhila, Sanavar Dhillon, and Gurpinder Singh, alias Baba. So 9 of the 12 people, and I want to come back to Sushant Sareen on this and the larger picture. Sushant, I want to know, you know, the information is there, the data is there, it's beyond proven that Canada has, has become a kind of safe haven. Before I go to Sushant, let me just bring in the reporter who broke this story, Arvind Ojha. I believe we have him live. Sushant, I'll come right back to you. Arvind, 12 नाम है इस लिस्ट पे, 9 नाम अभी भी कनाडा में हैं, कनाडा में लाइफ जी रहे हैं. Arvind, can you hear me? Arvind, can you hear me? Okay, we'll go back to Arvind in just a moment. Sushant, while we wait for our reporter, I'll come to you on that. This is just one more page, as it were. In a long list of evidence and proof and names that have so far proven pretty futile in terms of expecting any action from the Canadian side. Now, for reasons mysterious to us, many Khalistanis have been dropping like flies, including Nijjar himself 3 months ago. But I want to ask a bigger question because it's not about 1 or 2 guys, mysteriously dying somewhere. What more action can be taken? Because I think that's what the real question needs to be right now. It's not about a dozen gangsters here or there. It's about making sure a real message is sent.
Shiv, number one, it's not just about a dozen gangsters. This is like Dawood Ibrahim in Karachi and all these gangsters in Canada. right? There is now a clear, linkage you can draw between Canada and Karachi. And frankly, that is something which you cannot afford to ignore because of the nexus between terrorism, between drug running, between these criminal gangs. So clearly, the government of India will have to up the ante. Now, there are many things India can do. For example, there are Khalistani fellows who have published material saying that, such and such person came to India at least 3 or 4 times, carried out a hit, and then went back to Canada.
Yes.
How are they able to come? This whole OCI, PIO business, it needs to be reviewed because after all, you are giving it to them like, people are distributing reveries. This is not a right. This is a privilege which is accorded to people of Indian origin. But if those people become a threat to India, you have to start withdrawing this. Now, you will have to do it in a way that it is non-discriminatory. So that you don't target a particular faith or a particular religion. So you do it for everybody, you vet everybody, and like the Canadians make Indian security force officials write down their entire kacha chitta, you make all the people write down this big 2-page, 3-page, 10-page kind of a disclaimer about their, and a complete giving all details about where they live, where they interact, where they work, etc.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, I think the government of India, if you read the press release carefully, after the expulsion, the government of India said that Canadian diplomats, not diplomat, Canadian diplomats have been found doing anti-India activities. Now what? We have sent one guy back home. What about the plural in it? And what about this consulate which they are running in Chandigarh, which is right on the border of Punjab and Haryana? What are the activities of diplomats out there? Are we keeping a watch on that? And has the time come to maybe start shutting these things down and preventing Canadian diplomats the kind of freedom of movement which they have so far been allowed?
Yes.
Treat them like the Pakistanis, right? Pakistanis are confined to just the municipal limits of New Delhi. Give the same treatment to the Canadians if needed. If we get the same treatment in Canada, heavens are not going to fall. It's not such an important country for us anyways, right? So, but I think you will have to up the ante at least insofar or as far as the Trudeau government is concerned, because it has proved to be not just a hostile government, it has proved to be a positively an enemy government.
Okay,
right?
an enemy government.
The kind of actions they have taken and the kind of actions they have not taken.
Strong words, and that actually puts it into perspective. What is clear is that things have to happen now. The ante has to be raised. It's come to a point where shots have been fired, and now the Indian government can't perhaps only stop at a tit-for-tat response to the Canadian government expelling one of our diplomats over there. Arvind Ojha, our crime chief, is with us. Arvind is the one who's broken that very important list. It comes on a day when Justin Trudeau has pointed a finger at India as far as Hardeep Singh Nijjar is concerned. Arvind, ये जो 12 नाम है इस लिस्ट पर, उसमें से 9 लोग कनाडा में बैठे हैं, कनाडा से खुलेआम ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं. क्या कुछ एक्शन लिया जा रहा है? क्या कुछ रिस्पॉन्स है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट से कि ये लिस्ट तो है हाथ में, लेकिन उनके खिलाफ क्या किया जा रहा है?
नहीं, देखिए, अगर हरदीप सिंह निज्जर से हम शुरू करें शिव, तो हरदीप सिंह निज्जर को लेकर इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने कई बार कनाडा की जो सरकार है उससे सपोर्ट मांगा था. कई बार जो पूरी केस डिटेल्स है वो दी गई थी, लेकिन कनाडियन गवर्नमेंट ने कोई सपोर्ट नहीं दिखाया. यहाँ एक चीज और पॉइंट आउट करना चाहता हूँ. जिस तरह से कनाडा की सरकार ने ये बताया कि हरदीप सिंह निज्जर कनेडियन सिटीजन था, ये भी अपने आप में, जो एजेंसी के लोग कहना है कि ये भी अपने आप में काफी हास्यास्पद है, हंसाने वाली बात है. क्योंकि एक अक्यूज जो फेक पासपोर्ट पर कनाडा जाता है, जो वांटेड लिस्ट में, उसको कैसे सिटीजनशिप कनाडा की मिली? तो इसको लेकर भी कंट्रोवर्सी एजेंसीज के बीच है, जो बातचीत चल रही है. नंबर 1. नंबर 2, जो गोल्डी बरार है, उससे खुद इंडिया टुडे ने अभी रिसेंट इंटरव्यू किया था और गोल्डी बरार ने ये एडमिट किया था कि वो काफी टाइम कनाडा में था. खासतौर से जब सिद्धू मूसेवाले का मर्डर हुआ, वो कनाडा में ही मौजूद था. उसके बाद वो कहीं शिफ्ट हुआ. उसके अलावा 2 और ऐसे बड़े नाम है जिसमें अर्शदीप सिंह एलियस अर्श डाला, जो इंडिया टॉप मोस्ट वांटेड टेररिस्ट है, जिसने कल ही एक कांग्रेस के लीडर का मर्डर कराया है पंजाब में. वो पंजाब से भागा, कनाडा में शिफ्ट है, खालिस्तान टाइगर फोर्स के साथ, आईएसआई के साथ मिलकर पंजाब में टारगेट किलिंग करा रहा है। उसके अलावा लखबीर सिंह लांडा, ये वो नाम है जिसने अभी रिसेंट में पंजाब में देखा होगा, अपने मोहाली में इंटेलिजेंस बिल्डिंग पे अटैक करवाया था रॉकेट लॉन्चर से मेन सिटी में, वो कनाडा में बैठा हुआ है। तो ये वो टेररिस्ट है जो हाल फिलहाल में जिन्होंने न सिर्फ इंडिया में बल्कि पंजाब में बड़े पैमाने पर टेरर है। जो एनआईए है, जो इंडियन गवर्नमेंट है, वो लगातार कनाडा की एजेंसीज से, कनाडा के गवर्नमेंट से कहती है कि इनको डिपोर्ट किया जाए, इनके खिलाफ एक्शन लिया जाए, लेकिन कनाडा की गवर्नमेंट ने किसी तरह का कोई सपोर्ट नहीं दिया। हरदीप निज्जर की बात जिस तरह से की जा रही है कि हरदीप निज्जर का जो मर्डर है वो इंडियन एजेंसीज ने कराया, कि हकीकत ये है कि कनाडा में कई ऐसे गैंगस्टर हैं, कई ऐसे टेररिस्ट हैं जिनको
जी, और ये अरविंद, और ये तो साफ बिल्कुल है अभी कि कनाडा इज नॉट गोइंग टू टेक एनी एक्शन. दे हैव नॉट टेकन एनी एक्शन अगेंस्ट terrorists that India has named. Forget about gangsters. But like Sushant very importantly pointed out, that distinction may be technical, but these terrorist groups run like a mafia. They are very much hand in glove with these gangsters as well. The gangsters and the terrorist organizations are very fluid with each other. They come in and out. So it's all, in many ways, one large mafia that we're talking about. 9 of those 12 are hiding in Canada. I've got some breaking news. All of you, please stay with me. I've got some breaking news coming in. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has just snubbed his Canadian counterpart, Justin Trudeau, after Trudeau dialed Biden, Sunak and Macron, the president of France. The UK government says trade talks with India will continue. Remember, Trudeau had dialed Biden, Sunak and Macron, hoping to try and lobby against the Indian government, perhaps after India-Canada relations have hit ahead. Sunak has just issued a statement saying trade talks with India will continue. Gaurav, let me quickly bring you in on this. Trudeau clearly doing part of his job, which is to drum up support, for his line that he's taken against India. Sunak says he's not in the mood.
You're absolutely right, Shiv. Intelligence cooperation between these 5 countries, they're all part of Five Eyes, the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand. And in all of this, Justin Trudeau is desperately trying to drum up support. None of that support seems to be coming his way, at least not as yet, because Five Eyes, if there was something like this happening, Five Eyes would be in the loop on this. And in this current scenario, when a question was put to the British Prime Minister's press team, they simply got back saying trade talks with India are going as scheduled and they hope for an early conclusion. So completely dismissing what Justin Trudeau has been trying to say. Australia, once again, when a question was put to Anthony Albanese, he just asked journalists to chill out, and he said if there's intelligence, it remains intelligence and not speculation. So, there is really no support coming Canada's way just as yet, because facts are on India's side. It is Canada that's shielding terrorism. That's Canada that's shielding these elements with evidence out in public domain.
Yes.
And Canada's trying to shift the blame on India. As Sushant Sareen rightly said, quite like what Pakistan used to do, Canada is doing currently.
These are small actions, but they're going to add up to bigger things. Remember, the big picture still remains. How does one disincentivize the Canadian government from doing what it has done since the late 1970s? It has not changed, which means nothing that India has done has forced a policy change in Canadian governments, one after the other, as far as Khalistani terrorists is concerned. We'll keep tracking that story. Thanks very much, Sushant Sareen, Gaurav Sawant, Arvind Oja, for joining me on this and to make sense of it. Coming up next, however, we're not shifting completely away. It's a related story. Canadian Punjabi singer Shiv is facing opposition ahead of his Mumbai concert. We'll tell you why.